My name is Sean Shapiro. This is Ask a Traffic Cop. It's where you get to take your traffic and police questions, ask them, and we answer them. It's real simple, and now it includes Q&A functionality on TikTok. We're very happy about that because for almost 6 months we didn't have it. It was making me sad. But that all changes as of today. So if you are watching on LinkedIn, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all those platforms, ask a question in the chat and we will see it from all those platforms in one place. It's great. If you're watching on Twitter, unfortunately, it doesn't work, but you can jump onto our link tree in our bio. That will allow you to pick any of other platforms to jump over where things do work. And of course, if you're on TikTok, Q&A is now functioning. Thank you. And also on Instagram Live, it works. So bring us your questions and we will go from there. Vehicle Valley says, how are you today? Well, today we woke up to some sad news. Obviously, there's been a tragedy in Innisfil. South Simcoe police officers, there were 2 of them that were killed. We mourn for the service and the families and the community that's affected. Yeah, it's too many officers being killed. One is too many. Any are too many. But thanks for checking in. Otherwise, things are doing all right. We have Chase says, that's awful what happened. Andrew, I think it's Andrew, a private LinkedIn user, says, sad day for policing. Absolutely it is. We've been to too many police funerals. In the last 22 years, I've been to too many just too many. All right, let's see what we got here. Actually, before we get into these questions, because I jumped the gun, all this Q&A excitement, I want to just do the if it was an advert, it would be paying the bills. We don't have any bills, so it's just talking about Vision Zero enforcement team. Well, it's the 12th of October, and that means today our Vision Zero enforcement team are spending time in 42 Division as well as 13 Division, and that may mean nothing to you. But it means a lot to the people who are in the neighborhoods within those divisions. What neighborhoods are those? Well, it's neighborhoods like Yorkdale, Glen Park, Briar Hill, Witchwood, Oakwood, Vaughan, Malvern, Agincourt, Milliken, Rouge, Scarborough. Yeah. Now, our officers who are out there trying to make a change for the better, they're trying to influence, good driving behavior. They're trying to dissuade people from speeding, driving aggressively, driving distracted, or driving impaired. And they do that by charging people for offenses under the Highway Traffic Act or criminal code, depending on what they come across. In any case, they do issue tickets and make arrests. They do not give out hugs and warnings, so don't expect leniency. Expect that if you are doing something wrong, that you'll be held accountable. We have... it's confirmation. It is Andrew who's watching on LinkedIn, and along with my wife, Leo wife, who is magical in every way, shape, and form. Thank you for joining in, honey. We have greetings and salutations from Michaela Draconis, a regular viewer. And what is this? Can someone in labor go through a red light if it's deemed safe? There is no lawful authority to someone in labor, whether it's the person in labor or a driver, to go through a red light. The only people who are permitted under the Highway Traffic Act to cross through a signalized intersection on the red would be police, fire, and ambulance with full 360-degree lighting, as well as a sounding device of some kind, a siren, horn, something making noise. That's what's required. So, okay, we've got a couple of things. If you're watching and for whatever reason you can't get seen, know that we also have a community called Volley. Volley is a platform that allows you to send video, voice, or text to me and everybody else who's on the platform. Right now we've got about 116 people. If you go to trafficcop.ca, that's my link tree. You'll see a link that says Ask Me a Question on Volley. That's how you get there. And if you send us a video, voice, or text, we will talk about it, just as though we got questions from everybody else. But, same but different. How are private parking tickets regulated since they are not city tickets? Well, some private parking tickets are actually companies that have taken a course with us. They're writing on behalf of the city. They're permitted to. Those are enforceable tickets by the city. You actually fight them in court. When you talk about, let's see here, somebody making terrible harassing emojis. Sorry, they're sending piggies, so they need to be muted. In any case, if it's truly a private property ticket, which is one that has nothing to do with it's not enforceable by the city. It's just, I'm Bob's parking lot and I'm giving you Bob's ticket, and they can send you to collections. That allows them to be enforced that way. But they wouldn't affect your driver's license per se or your registration. It wouldn't prevent you from renewing. Okay, let's see what's going on. We got some Okay, so here's the Ava question. Is it Ava or Ava? In any case, the question is police foundations a good way to become a cop? You know what the best way to become a cop is? Apply to become a police officer. We are currently hiring. You can go to www.tps.ca/careers. That will give you all the information and more about becoming a police officer with the Toronto Police Service. And I know that other police services are also hiring. We're just the best one. Sorry to everybody else. But police foundations is great. We train people who come to us. And if you've got no other education and you're not going to school for accounting, which is my favorite go-to, I say become an accountant, because then you get involved with financial crimes. Whatever skills and abilities you develop through education are things that you bring to the table. But if everyone goes to the same course, then we don't have that diverse pool of knowledge. So whatever you do, get some education. But if you have an opportunity to be hired now while we're looking for applicants, then check it out. Hello from a close agency. How close? But hello back. We have driverless cars. Who gets the ticket? It's funny that you mentioned that, because Jerry Agar wants to talk about that. We will talk about that in a little while. 9:35, Jerry Agar on News Talk 1010 joins the show, and we'll talk to him about that very question. Got to save it for later. Tea. Not good tea, but I have a sore throat today. Okay. Apparently I talk a lot. I don't know why. Josh says, I don't think he wants to admit that police vehicles. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're talking about the volley. So Chase sent a video that has a photo of a vehicle that has dark tint on it. I don't know who owns that vehicle. I don't know what it is, but it does look to have dark tint on it. In any case, let's see here. We'll come back to driverless cars. By the way, if you're watching and you don't know who I am, my name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police constable with the Toronto Police Service here in Ontario, Canada, and I talk about traffic safety and police stuff, every day, pretty much. It's kind of my life. If you don't already follow us, please do. If you know a friend who would benefit from this content, please share it with them, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, just share and like and do all that fun stuff, because it really helps us out. We're not making more money, because we don't make any money of this, but we do want to help as many people as possible. So if you want to be part of that whole help the world in terms of traffic, please share it with everybody you know. And that would be great. Now, we also have a podcast, although we haven't had a new episode recently. The podcast is called TPS Traffic Jam. You can find it anywhere that podcasts are available. And if you download it and subscribe, that's also awesome, and that automatically makes you awesome if you're not already awesome. Just saying. If you are also, I got a shout out to the Nerd Dad, who may or may not be watching right now, but I recently guested on his podcast, and we had a lot of fun. So that Nerd Dad has a podcast, and you should check his out too. Someone wants to know what happened in Simcoe. I don't have details other than what was in the media. And apparently, police officers responded to a call for a disturbance, and as a result, police officers were killed. And at this point, the media has updated to say that both officers who attended were killed. Originally, one was wounded and one was killed. So very sad day for the entire police family. And we'll talk more about that later. What is this? Difference between manual bikes and cars in law enforcement? Manual bikes are pedal bikes. They don't have engines. Cars have engines. What do you want to know about? I don't understand where you're going with this question, but I'd love to discuss whatever you want to know. Do you mean like how do we enforce? Because you said enforcement separately as a separate statement. So when we enforce laws, the HTA applies to both bicycles and motor vehicles. Not all charges that are applicable to motor vehicles apply to bicycles, but there are some that are for both, and there's not much of a difference, except there's no demerit points for anyone who's charged on a bicycle, although a BlogTO recently quoted a lawyer saying that there was risk of getting points for being charged for stop sign offenses on a bicycle. Well, that's not accurate. The HTA should not be applying, or the ministry should not be applying points on a conviction for an offense that would get points in a vehicle if you're not on a motor vehicle specifically. Hope that helps. We have Jace saying, volley is great. Volley is great. Okay. And Jace follows up by saying, too many officers being lost. Listen, violence is bad. Violence of any kind is bad. And when it's violence against the people that are trying to protect everybody else, it's a true tragedy. Okay. Subpoena. Oh, a subpoena has the wrong address. Do I have to go? If you got the subpoena, then you've been subpoenaed. I imagine you'd still have to go. But I don't, you're aware of it, obviously. So yeah, you're still subpoenaed, I would assume. Talk to the Crown. Okay. Let's see here. Hey, man, I'm training to be a firefighter. Love you. Well, we love you back. That's cool. And firefighters are still people. We make we joke. It's not like the States. We don't hate each other. We make a lot of fun of each other. But I will say that firefighters make the best pizza. Every time I've investigated a collision related to a fire truck that was out shopping to get lunch, to go back and cook, they've been absolute gems, and they've always fed me, so I really appreciate firefighters. You know what? All kidding aside, firefighters do amazing work. Not only are they first responders for medical stuff, but they truly save people on a regular basis, and they go through a lot. Paramedics, also amazing people. They're just part of this big emergency services family, and we all work towards, we're all people helping people. That's really what it's all about. So if you decide that the hose and the ladders are kind of like clunky and you don't want to have to work out 24/7 every day, then you may want to consider becoming a police officer, because we are hiring. TPS.ca. Okay. What is a piece of justice? Carl Bismarck wants to know. I don't know. But please only ask your question once. Please don't spam. We just got the Q&A function back. We don't want to lose it. Don't break the technology. Let's see here. Can GV plates drive on what is this? Green vehicle, I'm going to assume is what you mean. So on HOV roads or HOV lanes, which are 400 series highways, green plates are permitted to ride solo in those. Can you drive with those on city plates? It's a very good question. Now, they have specific carpool exemptions. If you have 3 passengers for some, 2 passengers for other. But I don't think that green plates are specifically identified on the signs. Motorcycles are for most. But in city, in local carpool lanes, they're multi-use. Diamond could mean bus, taxi, motorcycle. You have to look at the sign. And I don't think they specifically state green plates. So good question. One that I'll have to get some further information on, because I've just taken for granted that they do, but I don't know if they do. Let's see here. Any tips for someone writing their driver's, do you mean Z, like an endorsement? I don't know if I have anything for the air brake endorsement in particular. I will say that if you've got training and you're practicing, and you read your stuff and make sure you're fed and watered and get lots of sleep. That's the only general advice I can give you for any test, really. If you're talking about something else or some other area of testing, let me know. Okay. Let's see here. A lot of people asking about the incident in South Simcoe, of which I don't know any details that you wouldn't know. It's just stuff from the media. It is an absolute tragedy, though. Absolutely. Leo Wife says, paramedics and fire are awesome. We love all first responders. We really do. Okay. What are who's what? We're on the air. We're live. Someone walked by and was talking. I think it was Anna. Hi, Anna. What is this? What are the response regulations for bicycle cops? What do you mean? They respond to things, and they have lights, and they have sounding devices on their bicycles, and they can pull you over. I can't quote any. I'm not a bicycle officer. I've not received the training to be a bicycle officer, so if there's something in particular that applies to them, I wouldn't know what it is. I leased a new car. They put a plate cover. Is that legal? So plate covers are not legal. In the under the Highway Traffic Act in Ontario, covering your plate is prohibited. You can't do it. You can't put a clear one. You can't put a colored one. You can't put a frame. Any obstruction of any portion of that plate would be an offense under the Highway Traffic Act, and you could receive a $110 ticket. So things to know. We have I think Andrew has got a question. It says here, do you know how to know when a firefighter is at a party? The answer is he'll tell you. Okay. I don't know if we're ready for dad. Is that a dad joke? We did dad jokes with Sergeant Campbell last week, and it was a fun episode. But I don't know if we're ready for another dad joke episode. Let's see here. You're ready for those? For more dad jokes? He walked away. He yelled and left. No joke was provided. He did have one. He said that they're not making 12-inch rulers any longer. Okay. John wants to know if they respond to calls, to all calls. I don't know if they respond to all calls, but they do respond to some calls, I imagine, I assume. Bicycle. Now we need to have a bicycle officer come in here. Okay. What would cops do if dirt bikers were on the road? If we saw an off-road vehicle prohibited from being on the road, we would stop and charge you for having depending if it was insured, probably isn't insured for the road, so we'd be charging you for a number of things. But ultimately, they're prohibited from the road. They're off-road vehicles, so we charge you, and then you'd be towed away because you can't drive it on the road. When do police help with traffic control? That's one of two, but I don't see the two of two. So we'll have to see when we find the two of two to answer for. Anyway, I want to know the other half of the question before I can answer. How dark of window tint are we allowed? We are under the regulation for a safe vehicle, under the light truck and passenger vehicle guide, inspection guide. This is the guide that's used for safetying a vehicle. It says that you can have no more than 30% light blockage on the windows directly left and right of the driver, and you can have nothing on the front windshield, save and except for 3 inches from the top down to the PS1 line, or 3 inches, whichever happens first, for vehicles that were manufactured before 2017. So what does that really mean? It means the windows behind the driver, the rear passenger and rear, is it a rear windscreen? The rear window can be as dark as you want. The windows left and right of the driver, however, can't be more than 30%, so that means 70% of the light has to get through. And generally speaking, the front windshield must be tint-free. And if it doesn't pass those, then the vehicle is deemed unsafe, and you could have your license plates seized, and that means getting towed home. Now, if we're talking about another charge under the Highway Traffic Act, so the charge for that would be unsafe vehicle. Now, we have a charge that says, obscure interior of a vehicle with color or reflective tint, or coating is what it actually says. But essentially, if we can't see you inside the vehicle, we can't see inside the vehicle because of color, whether it be gray, pink, green, or reflective qualities to it that prevent us from seeing inside, well, that's a charge of $110 as well. So there's not much tint that you can put on and still be legal. So don't put too much. We want you to be able to see out, and we have to be able to see in. If you're new to the channel, because I see a bump of people have just popped in on TikTok, know that you are a magical person who just found the best place on TikTok and every other platform, of course. Follow us if you haven't already. Follow us. We talk about traffic safety, traffic law, and police stuff too. My name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police constable here at the Toronto Police Service in Ontario, Canada. And at 9:35, we'll be joined by Newstalk 1010's Jerry Agar, the Jerry Agar Show, where we talk to him on the air. We share, we blend our show, so his audience will hear us, you will hear them. There'll be some call-in folks who come in, and I should probably give you the telephone number if you wanted to call in and say hello. You could call 416-872-1010 or text your questions to 71010, and that will be later, not right now, but we'll put that number up. Okay, what do we have here? What do motorcycle cops do for wintertime while on duty? This is a question from Neon, and it came through Volley. A text in Volley. Could have sent us a video, but no. Okay, anyway, I won't complain. What do they do? Well, when I was a motor squad officer, we had a fleet of vehicles that we used in the winter, and there were special occasions when we might have to take a motorcycle out in colder weather, but generally we put them away after Santa Claus Parade, and then we'd switch to cars for the winter. But we still do policey stuff. What is this? My wife asked me if I'd seen the dog bowl, and oh my goodness. Okay. This is dad joke time. Jay says, my wife asked me if I had seen the dog bowl. I said I never knew he did. Ba-dum-dum. Okay. Sometimes. I do appreciate dad jokes. Okay. Rob Baker says, motorcycle with no plate going 330 kilometers, is it unsafe to chase? That's a blur. Listen, that is not only a Highway Traffic Act offense, that's a criminal offense. That's dangerous driving. Is it unsafe to chase? That's something that I probably wouldn't be able to accelerate to catch. But I would phone a friend, and we'd call an air support. We'd do a bunch of different things as best we could to find that criminal driver. Could you be intoxicated on a moped with pedals? Actually, you can't be intoxicated on a motor vehicle, which is what a moped is. You cannot be intoxicated on an e-bike, which is considered a bicycle. But under the criminal code, anything other than muscular power becomes a motor vehicle. Now, recent law that's being tested in court, where an impaired person operating a conveyance, a boat in particular, canoe, was charged and convicted in relation to the death of a child but they were intoxicated when operating their conveyance. So there's been a decision that may change the way things look. It could be a bicycle that's pedal only, where you could be charged in relation to operation, but it hasn't been tested by court for a bicycle. So right now we're saying sticking with what we know, which is impaired operation on an e-bike or moped is impaired operation, just as though you were in a car. Thanks for the question, though. I don't think anyone's asked it quite that way. What is this? Can we drive in an HOV lane towing our 22-foot camper? I don't think there's a restriction. I don't know there's a restriction. That's a great question for Carrie Schmidt on the OPP channel. By the way, OPP does have the Ontario, what is it? The safety division, the highway safety division has a TikTok now, and you should bombard Carrie with lots of questions because I know he wants to build his channel. But I don't think there's any reason you couldn't, but I don't know for certain because, those highways, they're really his game. So we should check with him for the final answer, but I don't think there is. Can I find out for you? Let me see. HOV regulations. Because you know what? There's a Google thing that I am capable of interpreting. HOV Ontario. All right, let's see what we say. Who can use the HOV lanes? Car, van, or light truck, commercial truck less than 6.5 meters long with a gross weight of 4,500 kilos or less. Vehicle towing a trailer with a combined vehicle trailer length of less than 6.5 meters. So it looks like your 22-foot is not going to be okay. And all that available right on Googly Goo. Thank you for asking this because I now know stuff I didn't know 5 minutes ago. Can you drive on the highway with a G2? Why, yes, you can. You're a probationary driver. You can drive anywhere in Ontario. There are some conditions. You can't have alcohol in your system. You must have a zero BAC, zero blood alcohol content. And you can, in your first 6 months and second 6 months of being licensed as a G2, you are restricted as to how many people under the age of 19. I keep saying, is it under the age of 20 or under the age of 19? I always mess this up. G2 conditions. Let's have a look at that. Okay. License restrictions. Come on. I can't find it easily enough. We're gonna skip. We'll come back to it. Oh yeah, here it is. 19 or under. If you're a licensed driver, the passenger restrictions listed below. So it's people who, when driving between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m., G2 drivers aged 19 and under are permitted to just one passenger in the car under the age of 20 within the first 6 months of having your G2. After the first 6 months, you may have up to 3 passengers 19 or under in your car, and that does not apply if there is a fully licensed G person with 4 years of driving experience accompanying, and does not apply if the other passengers are immediate family. Cool. And I don't know why that does not want to stick. Maybe because I'm so far away from G2 in my mind, but whatever. I see a lot of bikes bending up the license plate, and they think they're exempt from the HTA. Rob, you're right. There's a lot of motorcycles out there that try and obscure their plates. Obviously, it's an offense under the HTA for that. In addition, those people are up to no good more often than not. It's not because the wheel needs clearance to move there. They're trying to avoid being detected or identified. So we stop them. We stop them when they're not breaking the law, when they're not driving in such a way that we stop for their driving. We stop them just because we see the plate, because that's an issue and it's against the law. But it's nice of them to let themselves be known as squids or riders with whom we have interest. Oh, limited edition. The two out of two. Where's the other half? And now I see your 2 out of 2, and I forgot. I can't find your 1 out of 2. Jarvis is awful both ways at 5 p.m. and on and off the QE. Yeah, traffic is not traffic when it comes to not moving is not fun. That form of traffic, yuck. Okay. Any less thought of tips for safe motorcycling? Douglas Allen wants to know. Motorcycling is a wonderful sport. I've done it since I was 16 years old. Love it. Miss it. I was in a crash in 2018 and have not ridden since, other than possibly in the parking lot for 5 seconds. But long story short is you have less protection. You are a vulnerable road user when you're on a motorcycle, and you've got to be the better rider. I say the same thing about cyclists. I even say it about pedestrians. When you're a vulnerable road user, you've got to be switched on. You cannot rely on anybody else for your safety. You have to do what you need to do to be safe, and that often means being safer than everybody else. And it's a lot of responsibility that many people will say isn't something that you should be responsible for. It should be everybody else. But we already know that everybody else is out to lunch. So, this is one thing. If you're riding a motorcycle, bicycle, or just walking, you want to be the best you can be. And you want to pay attention for all those drivers who are not paying attention and, be able to take evasive action if you can. But otherwise, good sleep when you're on a motorcycle, get lessons, learn to ride, actually invest in yourself. A rider training program is a wonderful gift to yourself. It'll make you a better rider. Even if you have been riding for your entire life, you can always be better. And that was me. I learned to ride on my own. I met an instructor. I got some tips. I was like, holy moly, there's so much to learn here. I went out and became a professional rider. I later became a motor squad officer, even a drill team member. And you can never stop learning, or you never should stop learning. Question was, why do you look like Pete Davidson? I have no idea who Pete Davidson is, but now I need to Google him. Pete Davidson, let's see here. Is Pete Davidson a good guy or a bad guy? I don't know. I do not look like Pete Davidson. Come on. No, I don't buy that. Okay. Would you support more extensive requirements for driver's license? Yeah, I would. I think that we could see a lot of improvements in terms of more testing. If you look at Europe, I spoke to a chap via LinkedIn who had moved to Ireland and as a Canadian gave up, because he's been there for over a decade, gave up his license. He no longer drives because it was so difficult to meet the standards in Ireland that he just didn't bother driving. He had some temporary licenses, but it was very involved. In any case, he's coming back to Canada, or at least that was the plan last year when we spoke last. And he said he has to start all over again as a G1 driver. It's really not fun. Any law for people driving under 100 kilometers an hour in the highway? So 100 kilometers an hour on most expressways is in fact the limit. And you don't have to drive at the limit. It's the limit, not the minimum. So depends. If you're in the right lanes and you're driving it under the speed limit, you're lawful. If you're driving it way under the speed limit, you're unsafe. And that's where unnecessary slow driving may come into effect. But just driving it mildly less, 10K under, that's not against the law. If you were in the passing lane, you're impeding. That's faster traffic, because although it's called the passing lane by many people, it's not actually a passing lane. It's just a lane that's on the left. And very often you'll see signage on some roads that say slower traffic, stay to the right. So if you were actually obstructing traffic that was trying to go the speed limit, because you know what? You're not allowed to go beyond the speed limit. If you're doing 1 kilometer over, you are speeding and you're eligible for a ticket, despite the fact that many people don't get stopped for 1 kilometer over. You'd be eligible for a ticket. It would be a lawful charge. And those people should be charged if they're going slow. Now, listen, if you talk about the DVP, very lovingly referred to as the Don Valley parking lot, very often no one is going over 40. So it really depends on, we lost our connection to TikTok. That's not good. And we're back. I don't know how much of that was lost, but I saw the red dot. So we may have lost a few seconds out of that last spiel. But yeah, traffic happens. But if it's moving fast now, if people are doing 130, people are speeding, and they're upset because people in front of them are going too slow, too bad. You shouldn't be speeding in the first place. When can you have a BAC when driving? That is where I lose. Oh, we crashed the whole app. That's great. Hang on. TikTok crashed.
Don't show up.
Hello.
Don't come.
Come on. Go back to our live. Go live. Can we resume? Resume. Okay. Hopefully we're back. That was a complete crash of TikTok. Yay. I've not seen that happen just that way before. Okay. Let's get back into the Q&A. Maybe it's because we just got Q&A and we've just been overloaded with magical questions. So the question was, when can you have a BAC when driving? Well, if you are over 21, meaning you're a 22, and you are a fully licensed G-Class driver, you can have some alcohol in your system. You wouldn't blow an alert until you are 0.05 BAC, but the truth is that you could be impaired at below that number. Just any alcohol in your system could result in impairment. It's going to be dependent on the individual. So the better answer is none. None. You should never have alcohol in your system. But from a legal perspective, you wouldn't get a suspension or blow a warrant until you were 0.05, and you wouldn't be criminally responsible until you were 0.08. Now, criminally responsible specifically for the charge of impaired operation or over 80 over. You could be impaired at any point if there was an observation of impairment. To be careful how I speak because I don't want to give you the wrong idea. You can't drive impaired. Okay, can my motorcycle be loud? No, nor can your car or the stereo in your car or motorcycle for that matter. You can't create unnecessary noise. And you must have an approved muffler and exhaust system. So if you are creating something that is beyond that, you have some problems. Yeah. You could be charged $110 just for having the unnecessary noise. It would be additional charges for having an improper muffler. So it depends on what you're doing to get to that unnecessary noise. Jay says, are motorcycles required to have front plates? No. Under the HTA in Ontario, there's a specific exemption allowing motorcycles to not require front plates. It also applies to dealer plates and so on, and so on. And I think also classics. What to do when you get brake checked? John wants to know. Hopefully you're not on someone's tail and that brake check didn't affect you negatively, but the brake check could be a criminal event. At very least, it could be careless driving. Hopefully you have a dash cam to record that, because when someone brakes checks you, that's a problem. Now, his continuation is person won't move or let you pass. That could be stunt driving if they're specifically preventing you from passing, like actively preventing you. That could be stunt driving. So it might be something you'd call the police for. At very least, I would back off and wait to get rid of that person who's being aggressive towards you, because there's no win here. You're much better being safe, giving yourself some distance and getting around them later, having some patience. That's the way to go. Can I use my current plate to bring back a car? If your current plate is valid for road use, in other words, you've renewed it, it's currently valid in the system and not attached to another vehicle, and I mean that in the system. You can't take it off your currently licensed and insured vehicle and bolt it onto another vehicle just to take it home. You have to have removed the plate in terms of the back end. You've got to transfer it so it's got an unattached status, but it has to be valid. And then you have up to 6 days to use that to get it home. Better use is to get the dealership to transfer it. If it's a private sale, have them attend the ministry and just transfer it to the new plate or to that plate officially. Hope I made that clear. If not, please bounce back and give me some indicator that you need further explanation. Okay. Looking here, looking there, looking everywhere. We're good to go. News Talk. I didn't notice you pop in.
How are you?
Hey, News Talk.
How are you?
Wait, now I should hear you. You there?
Yep, I'm here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Sorry, I didn't hear the alert. I just noticed when I looked up that we hadn't connected. We are now connected.
Good. I'm glad you can hear us. We can hear you perfectly fine, and we're just in the middle of commercial break, so we will have you in about 2.5 minutes here. We're
2.5 minutes. If you can make it so we don't have audio until Jerry comes back, that would be awesome.
You should not have audio right now, except for me.
That's perfect. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, so as you may have just noticed, I was talking to the folks at News Talk 1010 because we will be joining the Jerry Agar Show as we do on a regular basis. He joins our TikTok and we join his radio broadcast, and we do what we do normally, just with more friends. You know, everyone in Toronto is listening to the radio station. So we'll be looking for some questions, and I've got a whole bunch of them right in front of me that we'll be using on air. And he's got some stuff that he will want to talk about, and we'll talk about it all. So if you got 2.5 minutes, if you have to go to the washroom or you want to make a coffee and then come back so you don't miss anything, well, you should do that. In the meantime, you should follow us if you don't already follow us, and you should obviously share this live with everybody you know, because it's about to get serious. All right, we talked about this already. I can put that on screen and then delete the question. If you're new to the channel and you don't know who I am, my name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police constable with the Toronto Police Service. I go live on social media to answer your traffic and police questions. I do it Monday to Friday, unless something happens. Like tomorrow, for instance, I'm going to be off site. I'll be creating content, but I will not be in the studio, so I can't go live. I don't think I can go live. We'll see. But that's going to be an exciting day tomorrow. I just can't share it with you live, as far as I know. Let's see here. I got a couple of questions I want to peruse and prepare for when we go live. If you've not already checked out trafficcop.ca, know that you can reach us all the time there. Trafficcop.ca is a link that takes you to my link tree, and from there you can find all of our social media platforms. You can also go to Volley. That's one of the platforms, and that's an online community where you can send pictures, video, voice, text, all that stuff, and we see it and we respond to it. Not always right away, but we do it. Messi or Ronaldo? Please answer. That's soccer, right? I'm not a sports guy. I just don't do it. I will say I know who Ronaldo is because he did some pretty amazing viral videos back in the day. But I don't watch sports. There's so much TV that I don't get to watch. I don't waste it on sports. I'm sorry if you're a sports fan. I try and support our local teams, but yeah, no time. Let's see here. Can we drive up to I'll put it on screen. Can we drive up to 130 kilometers an hour on the highway? Why didn't that pop up? I don't want that.
Coming up.
We are coming up. Here we go.
The Jerry Agar Show continues on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
And joining me now, and we're always pleased to have him, is the TikTok traffic cop, Sean Shapiro, at Traffic Services on TikTok every day, pretty much. And then we, every couple of weeks, dip into the TikTok show and do a double up here. We're double dating with you here, Sean. That's what's happening.
It's awesome.
All right, couple of things I want to talk to you about before we get to any traffic questions or take some calls, and we will take your calls if you have traffic questions at 416-872-1010. 416-872-1010, toll-free 877-518-5151, 518-5151, and you can text us at 71010. It is a horrible day for the community, and I generally, and I think police officers specifically, and that is the killing of two cops. Mark Mendelson, former homicide detective for Toronto Police, was speaking about it earlier today.
On a vehicle stop, there's some control. You've got that driver in that car, albeit you don't know exactly what's in the car, but if there's an officer safety issue, you remove that person from the car. You make them keep their hands on the steering wheel. There's all kinds of controls that can be used, and there's that space between the officer and the police car and the vehicle they stop. When you walk into somebody's home, it's a very, very different situation. You have an intimate partner who may be terrified, who didn't provide all the information to the police that he or she may have been able to prior to their arrival. And as I said, you're walking into a house. You don't know the layout. You don't know what is there. There could be handguns, and like I said, machetes. Kitchens have knives and all kinds of other implements that can seriously injure somebody. So you're walking in blind, and it's an emotional situation, obviously, because somebody's called the police. It's just dangerous until everything can be de-escalated. And it sounds like in this case, the exact opposite happened.
Now, he was saying that it's different than a traffic stop. A traffic stop, of course, is potentially dangerous as well. We had a police officer killed just recently. He was having a cup of coffee. Somebody was out to kill a police officer. And so when these stories happen, I mean, what do you wake up thinking this morning, Sean?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing I do when I wake up is I check my social media, and immediately I'm seeing South Simcoe Police logos with morning bands, and my heart sunk. We just lost Andrew Hong, a training constable with the motor squad here in the Toronto Police, and we're still grieving from that loss. I can't imagine what the family and friends in the policing community, across Canada is thinking right now. But it's a tragedy. There's nothing else to say about it. It's things that shouldn't happen, and it's very hard to digest.
I think it probably weighs pretty heavily, too, on families who have a police officer in the family, and they wake up in the morning and Officer Sean is going off to work, and the rest of the family is hearing this story on the radio.
Yeah, I'll tell you that I had a crash in 2018. You're aware of that. And my wife, who also worked for the service, was picked up and taken to the hospital to see me. And the chief was there, and I survived it. But we say goodbye every morning, and we don't know if we're going to be home. That's every police officer. We just don't know if that's the last goodbye. So it's part of the job. Yes, nobody signs up to become a police officer with the intention to die, but we know that it's a risk, and it's sad when it happens.
At this point, there's a press conference planned for details behind this. Two South Simcoe police officers killed in a shooting in Innisville, and they have now said 1 o'clock. These things can be fluid, but you'll get information on it when it happens here on the network. Meanwhile, just a little bit ago, I was talking to a bus advocate, and she and some of her buddies went out there, or people she was speaking for went out there, and near Dufferin, and they painted a pop-up bus lane, they called it, because they think there should be a set-aside bus lane there. So they used washable paint. It'll wash away. And they put it out there. If Officer Sean rolls up and people are out on the street painting a bus lane, what's the procedure? That can't be legal.
Well, that's a charge of mischief. They can't do what they're doing. I appreciate their interest. I appreciate that they think things should be a certain way, but unfortunately, taking matters in your own hands isn't okay. And they could have found, or may find still, some repercussions as a result of their actions.
All right. You think they might still? You know what? I think they're doing some politically correct agenda thing, and nobody will do anything about it at all. That's what I think.
That may be the case, but I'm just, generally speaking, going into live traffic and painting on the road, bad.
All right. Now, this is something I promised people I would talk to you about, because I brought it up on the show yesterday, and it came to my mind because it was the opening of an episode of The Rookie. I watched that show.
I love the show.
Do you like that show?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Officer Nolan is out on patrol by himself, and he stops at a stop sign, and a car blows right by him so he lights it up, and the car pulls over, and he goes up, and there's no driver. And then the back window rolls down, and this girl who looks like she's 14 or 15 says, "Is there a problem, officer?" And he says, "Where's the driver?" And she says, "Well, it's a driverless car. It takes me to school." And he says, "Well, you're going to get a ticket." And she says, "Well, I'm not driving." But what would you do in that situation? This is a new thing.
Well, so right now, and it's very specific, there is no available driverless car that you can purchase for personal use. You can't buy a level 3 or higher car in Ontario right now. Now, there's a pilot project that's in place, and that is for testing. It's very specific as to what it can be used for and who can use it. It's fascinating, and of course, Loblaws and Gaddick have one vehicle that's currently in, I believe, level 4, where they have no driver behind the wheel. They have a driver in the passenger seat with an override button, but it's truly considered driverless. Now, we would hope that it would follow all the rules, but if it's being pulled over or if it is involved in a collision, it needs to pull over. In fact, if it has any errors, the system has to allow it to pull over immediately and safely. When you talk about vehicles that are operating, they have a number of other vehicles, and they've been using this system for a while. They have to have a driver in the driver's seat, and they are considered a driver at that point. So if something went wrong, the driver would be responsible.
Yeah, in a situation, theoretically speaking, where here's this young girl in the back, some people had said, well, she wasn't driving. And I think if there's a person in the car, that person's responsible. And if you pulled over somebody who was 15 years old for blowing through a stop sign, and you said, "Can I see your driver's license?" Well, I don't have one. There are tickets for that, aren't there?
Well, again, that system is not approved for use here. In the States, they do have taxis
I'm saying
that
if it was a regular car.
Oh, if it was a regular car, it would be stunt driving. So if it was like if you had a Tesla right now and you were sitting in the passenger seat or any other seat other than the driver's seat with the technology current approved for the roads of Ontario, that would be stunt driving if you were not in the driver's seat. You are the driver.
Sean Shapiro is with me, the TikTok traffic cop, and here is Bill from Pickering. What's your question, Bill?
Yes, sir. I'm just questioning whether or not people who drive a car that have fogged up headlights, they're quite often 10, 12, 15 years old, whether that's breaking any of the Highway Traffic Act laws or et cetera. I've had one myself, and it was about $3,500 to get them replaced on a 12-year-old Civic, so I know it's not an easy problem to solve.
Yeah, so headlights have requirements. They have to be, discernible and functional to a certain level. If they were so faded or sun bleached or they had moisture in there, whatever the case may be, if they were not functioning safely and did not meet the standard, they would be improper headlights and they could be charged under the Highway Traffic Act.
Yeah, because there's many cars driving on the road that have that.
Yes.
I see a lot of them. Yeah.
Simply a glowing cube in the front of the vehicle is not headlights. They have to project light appropriately outward, and if we see that, we would stop and interact.
It would seem the manufacturer should be responsible. It's almost like a defect in the design because the owner didn't do anything wrong.
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, you are responsible for maintaining your vehicle, and if something were to fail over time, you are still responsible as the owner. You can always try and take it up with your warranty. Once a vehicle is out of warranty, it's still you who's responsible, just like any other part of your vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much for your call, Bill. Somebody responded, Sean, to our conversation about the driverless car, and this person writes, people are posting videos now having sex in those cars as they operate driverless. So then Officer Sean says, look, I hate to interrupt here, but...
yeah, that would be a situation. If you were in a Tesla in Ontario, because in other jurisdictions, they may have driverless capability, but in Ontario, you've got to be actually behind the wheel driving. And if you were elsewhere, we'd be taking that car and your license under stunt driving.
Okay, what was interesting in that show, though, was and this is pointed out by a person on text, essentially, and that is that the car blew through the stop sign, but when he lit it up, the car pulled over.
So the technology for truly driverless vehicles have been demonstrated that if they hear light sirens, they do what they're supposed to do. They pull over and stop. But when you deactivate that siren, and one video on TikTok actually showed the vehicle taking off again. The police officer walked up, couldn't find a driver, and it just drove away because based on its protocol, it was no longer required to pull over.
Yeah, emergency was over. We'll take your questions, 416-872-1010. 877-518-5151 and text at 710, and we'll dip into some TikTok questions as well with Sean Shapiro coming up on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
Okay, we are
9:45 News Talk 1010 time saver traffic.
What am I going to do here? Okay, we're going back onto mute with the Jerry. He'll be back in a couple minutes after the commercial break. And just to answer Raquel, who wants to know, what are we talking about? Well, that was Jerry Agar on News Talk 1010. We once in a while jump on to each other's shows, and we take questions from his audience. We talk about TikTok questions, and that's what we're doing. My name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service here in Ontario, Canada. I talk about traffic safety, traffic law, and police stuff pretty much every day. Saving except for weekends or days I decide not to show up. Sort of. But we are here today, and we are taking your questions. We're doing it on all of the platforms we're currently broadcasting on. That includes Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, of course, on Twitter, you can't ask us questions, so jump into our link tree, find a different platform you can jump into to talk to us, because we want to hear your questions, and we do our best to get to all of them. Now, we're scheduled till 10, but my next appointment's not till 10:30, so I'm going to go probably about 10 to 15 minutes long and give everybody the opportunity to get their questions answered. At least we'll do our best. If you're watching and you're like, I can't wait in line, you could also jump into our Volley community. That is available through the link tree. You're going to trafficcop.ca. There's a click button that says ask me a question on Volley. That's our community, and you can ask us anytime, day or night. We don't always answer. It's asynchronous communication. Ask us a question, we'll eventually answer you. Usually we don't type when we're sleeping. I'm sorry. Can I keep my phone on my lap with maps open? No. On your lap is considered use, and it might slide off. You may have to grab it. The law has said, the courts have determined that on your lap is not legal. Now, you can have your GPS open if your phone is mounted or somewhere secure that it's not going to fly away. Then you can look at your maps. But remember, taking your eyes off the road is still dangerous. So putting it somewhere that it will be viewable with minimal looking. You don't want to look down into your lap to see your maps. That's asking to drive into the car in front of you. And we are all about safety. So, can you keep your phone in your lap? No. Is there a better way to do it? Absolutely. And you need to know that you cannot add or manipulate the phone while it's in that mode. You need to set it and forget it before you get onto the road and legally start driving. What is legally driving? That's any time that you are supposed to be paying attention to the road. So, stopped at a red light, that's still driving. What is this? Where can I get a note for a seatbelt exemption? That is talking to your doctor. In Ontario, a doctor can give you an exemption for your seatbelt. But you got to know that you have to have a really good reason, because seatbelt is still the number one way to prevent serious injury and death in a collision. The number one, because when you don't have a seatbelt, airbags don't just work on their own. They work in conjunction with a seatbelt. And we'd like you to arrive alive. Guaranteed arrival is a big thing for us. And if you don't wear a seatbelt, there are people who have to. Like, they cannot. They have a heart condition. There's something going on. Doctors will agree with them that they shouldn't wear a seatbelt, or never mind agree, they may suggest it. Be wary. I know that seatbelts are still incredibly important to keeping you safe. Tracy says, new driverless delivery vans? Yes, Loblaws, in conjunction with a company called Gatik, are experimenting with one truly driverless vehicle on a 7-mile route, taking product from one depot to another. They're not actually doing it. It's just testing. I think they have 4 other vehicles that are running with drivers behind the wheel, but one that is truly driverless, only with a passenger, no person behind the wheel. Okay. Boy, TikTok's been acting weird today. Does Drake have his own lane in Toronto? I've not seen Drake except for one video that I talked about last year, so he does not have a lane that I'm aware of. Doctor won't write note, can't breathe with it on, though. Yeah, if they won't write it, then you don't get the exemption. It's got to be for a reason. But I am not a medical professional. I can just tell you that you do need a seatbelt. You might be able to put on something that would change the way it lies across your chest, relocate it, so it's still considered an appropriate way to wear it. but not wearing it is not safe. And it's only if it's absolutely necessary. But I feel for you, Mel. That can't breathe is not a good thing. Is it because it's blocking your neck, or just because is it just because you don't like the way it feels? But feel free to DM me. We can talk about it. Okay. Is it illegal to have a hitch and not to use it? It's not illegal to have your hitch in, but it is something that we've discussed a lot, because one of the discussions is it's potentially going to cause other damage to your vehicle if it was the right. Oh, we're coming up. We're coming back. Okay, we'll talk more about hitches after Jerry and I say goodbye. This is Jerry Agar on News Talk 1010.
This is the Jerry Agar Show on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
And Sean Shapiro, the TikTok traffic cop, is with me. He's at Traffic Services on TikTok, and every day he's answering questions for people regarding traffic situations, laws, and real rules and regulations. And we dip in every couple of weeks. Sean Shapiro, what are people asking you this morning on TikTok?
One of the questions we were just discussing before you came back was trailer hitches. And what if I have a trailer hitch installed but not currently towing a trailer? Can I get a ticket for that? And there is no ticket for that. Now, we've suggested against it because your shins will thank you if you walk around your vehicle and you let your ball hitch in. It makes for a heck of an ouch, but not a charge.
All right, this is a fascinating question. We do get some of the similar questions from time to time, but this is I've never heard this before. Somebody writes, went through a ride checkpoint on my way to work. The officer saw my lunch bag sitting on the passenger seat and told me to open it. Do I have to do that?
That's interesting. I've never been asked, or I've never asked anyone to open their lunch bag. Maybe they thought it was open alcohol and they were trying to clarify that. If they were doing that under the liquor license, they were looking for impaired drivers, that seems reasonable. But I'd have to double check with my expert on the topic.
Because you've never actually asked somebody to do that.
I've never done that.
Okay. Here is Glenn from Toronto. Glenn, what's your question?
Yes, first I'd like to say anybody who would shoot an officer should be in jail for 50 years. I really got mad when I heard about those things. Anyway,
wait a minute. It should only be 50 years if they're already 50. If they're 20, I'm going for 80 years.
I would go for that too.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, with the price of gas these days, it's not really well known. It should be, but it's not well known, it seems, that if you drive below the speed limit, you'll save a lot of gas. And the best speed to drive is around 80 or 85. And with the price of gas, I have to work. I have to travel when I on the road to go to work. But it's almost like I can't afford to work these days. But if I go around 80 or 85 on the 401, or up at the 404 at the top, it's up to 110 now. So I've got to go at least 90, I think. But there's not much traffic up there.
So the question is
it illegal to go 15 to 20 kilometers below the speed limit if you're not impeding traffic? Because if I'm impeding traffic, I'll get off or I'll speed up a bit.
Well, you've actually answered the question right there. The unnecessary slow driving charge is very specific to impeding traffic. So if you're on the right lanes and traffic can get past you no problem, then being below the speed limit is not against the law, as long as it's not so slow that you're creating a hazard. I don't think that 10 to 15 kilometers under the speed limit is unreasonable. Many will disagree. I also find that speeding is unreasonable, and equally many will disagree. The limit is the limit.
All right, Glenn, thanks very much for that. You know what? That ties into a question I wanted to ask you. Is there a point at which you might charge somebody because they just refuse to get up to speed coming off the ramp? It happened this morning. I'm coming along the Gardner. We're all traveling along at about the speed limit, not as fast as I told you we do sometimes at 5 in the morning on the Gardner. But we're all traveling along at a reasonable speed. And all of a sudden, one of the on-ramps to the Gardner, somebody comes down there at, I think, about 35 kilometers. And then clearly the driver got all freaked out because he couldn't get into traffic. And it would have been a complete snarl of traffic if there had been more volume at all.
That sounds like a very unsafe maneuver, and you are responsible for merging and changing lanes safely. So if you're not getting up to speed, that could very well be a situation where you're causing a collision and you'd be responsible. What's the wording for that? It may be careless, it may be unnecessary slow drive. It could be a number of things depending on what we're making observations of. But you're responsible for making that safe transition onto the highway.
I think if you're coming up or down a ramp onto a highway where traffic is really moving along and you don't have the wherewithal, the nerve to get on the gas, get up to speed and work yourself into traffic, then you don't belong on something like the Gardner or the DVP or the 401, assuming the 401 ever gets up to speed. And you should just stay on Lakeshore, for instance, in this.
You make a good point. Not every driver should be on every road. And if you don't feel safe being on the highway, if that's something that gives you anxiety, if you are going to make unsafe decisions based on you not feeling comfortable, then don't use the road. Don't just go there because your GPS says so. Be prepared to drive appropriately where you're going, because you're going to cause a collision if you're doing it incorrectly.
Here is Robert from Thornhill. What's your question, Robert?
So I'd like to know why red light tickets are not being issued. Basically, I was involved in an accident where I was T-boned, and the gentleman that T-boned me ran a red light, and the police officer said that they were not going to issue him a red light ticket because the courts are so backed up from COVID that they're not issuing minor tickets. Is that true? Or
I've never heard anything along that line. It may be true that they're backed up, but we've had no direction not to issue tickets. When we see people or have evidence to support a charge, we lay that charge. If the courts decide not to pursue it, that's on them. We lay the charge. I don't know where that.
Because my cameras, I showed exactly what was on my cameras on my car, and they said that because the courts were backed up, they weren't issuing a red light ticket.
So that's a decision that particular officer made then.
Yeah, I was that somewhere in Toronto or was that elsewhere?
It was in York Region.
Okay, I don't know what their policies are. Obviously, I'm not a police officer with that service, but Toronto is not operating under that direction.
Thanks for your call, Robert. I appreciate it. That would be a surprising thing to hear from a cop.
I can't imagine, and I mean I'll take your caller at their word, but that doesn't sound like something that we'd say. It may be something where broken telephone was employed, or even that officer may have had the wrong idea. But we lay charges.
Could have been a lazy person.
That's entirely different.
Got a few lazy officers?
We have lazy everybody's, and I mean that there's lazy doctors, lawyers, there's lazy accountants, there's lazy everybody's.
For everybody who watches Rookie, because you do, the Rookie, that's Smitty. Smitty,
oh, yeah.
Doesn't want to do anything. Here is Adam from Aurora.
Okay, so here's my problem. Everywhere that I drive, so let's say Richmond Hill, Aurora, Newmarket, Maple, Vaughan, people don't go on a green light. I can count up to 5 Mississippis before I hit my horn. And there'll be like 5 cars in front of me, and they'll start going after I count. I've even had one time where I got out of my car and knocked on someone's window and said, "What are you doing?" They're like, "What?" I said, "It's been a green light for like 10 seconds."
Yeah, most of them have to finish the email they're typing. We have a big issue with distracted driving, and many people believe it's safe to use their devices when they're stopped at a light. When I was in the motor squad, I would roll up beside someone, and I would have to knock on the window to get their attention. It was that bad. So I feel for you. It's not okay. That's what a horn is for, by the way. Communicating is appropriate with your horn. That's not unnecessary noise. That's waking people up.
That's what the horn is actually for.
Yes.
Most of the time, I'll wait a few seconds, this does bother me, especially on a left turn light, because if people don't get with it, then we don't, as many of us don't get through the intersection as could have, because the person at the front isn't paying attention. But mostly, if you just go beep, they look up and then they go, oh, and they go. Getting out of the car and going to talk to them, I don't know what I would say to them. I think I'd probably say, that's as green as it gets.
They may have been waiting for a different shade of green. The deal is that people don't they don't really accept that distracted driving is a problem, and they don't realize what an impact it makes to the flow of traffic throughout our city. When someone just takes a few seconds, that few seconds ripples through. You're right. It's the number of cars that can get through an intersection during a trade or a change of sequence. It makes an impact. You need to be switched on and anticipate what's going to be happening, being ready for what's going to happen next. Be a driver if you're going to drive, and if you want to play on your phone, do something else.
Yeah, I get where people think, though, like the light just turned red. I'm going to be here for, I can respond to this text and be ready to go. And I think they'd be pretty irked if they got a ticket because they'd think, well, I wasn't going anywhere.
I cannot tell you how many people were really confused by the fact that they got tickets for video conferencing at a red light, or just it was they were holding a phone but it was in speaker mode and they thought that was hands free. Like, there's still a big problem, and the truth is people are addicted to their devices.
All right, Sean Shapiro, we'll talk again. Thanks very much.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
This is the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
Okay, let me Let me get rid of news talk, and then we can jump back into things. I love when we connect with Jerry because it's always interesting. You know, we get a lot of wonderful questions, but we get a different perspective when we're actually talking to you. And you know, they screen their calls, and they have the ability of muting somebody if it goes off the rails. Otherwise, we would do much of the same here. But we don't have that delay. So if someone were to say something inappropriate, we want to keep things safe here. For everybody. Okay, let's get back to questions from TikTok and every other platform. We have here, child seat in a 2-seater car, is it legal? It's legal. It's not ideal. You want to be able to deactivate an airbag if it's going to be in front of a child, because those airbags deploy at like 200 miles per hour. They can seriously injure, if not kill, a smaller person, especially someone who's not fully developed yet, and in a skeletal perspective. So we want to avoid that. So in older vehicles where you couldn't disable it, and now with new vehicles where you can't actually turn it off, you want to move your seat as far back as possible. So it's not illegal, but it's not ideal. We want to see back seat until someone is 14 years old in best practices. But we accept that it's going to happen. If you have a two-seater car, it's a two-seater car, and you got to get around. Okay. Peston North says, sad day for South Simcoe Police. Rest in peace, 2 officers. Thank you. Yes, and we do send our condolences from. We have members of our motor squad who are assisting with things right now. It's a tragedy, true tragedy. Yeah. Okay. How far can your tire stick out from your vehicle? It can't. It must be covered by a fender, by a what's it called, mud flap. It has to be covered. So if your tires are protruding, it's technically a violation. And could you get a ticket for improper tires? Absolutely. There's a number of reasons why it's illegal. One of those reasons is because you will be spraying up dirt and debris and water, rooster tails and whatnot. The other one is because you will likely make contact with a pedestrian, or you are more likely to make contact with a pedestrian. In the event that you are already making a contact, you could get them, increase the injuries, essentially. So it's bad, and you shouldn't do it. And is that the focus of our enforcement when we go out there? Do we look for every tire? No. So many people have been getting away with it for a very long time. Our focus is the big 4. The people who are choosing to, speed, drive aggressively, drive distracted, or drive impaired, because those are the offenses that more often than not lead to serious injury and death on our roads. Are having tires stick out a major problem? It's a problem, but the focus is still the higher problem. So we have to triage. You may get both. You may get a speeding ticket and also get the tire ticket. But by no means am I endorsing that you should be doing this. You should not have improper tires. Let's see here. We've got some condolences and support messages. I'll put it on screen, but I'm not going to read it just because I'm going to be continuing to read for other questions. What is this? To reduce traffic, would raising the limit help? No, I don't think it would. When we see traffic, the speed limit isn't the reason that we have traffic. If everyone moved the same speed, even if it was lower than the current speed limit, we'd see more movement. One of the biggest problems we have with traffic are people who are, clogging up intersections when they're getting on and off a highway. In fact, highway design, like the diverging diamond intersection that's being employed in Niagara region, is one of those things that should reduce traffic congestion. But making it faster doesn't make it go away. Preventing overload, and you get to certain traffic signals, and due to timing, it just slows things down, and then that ripples back to the highway, and then we have traffic everywhere. Why is darker Tinty legal? Well, you have to be able to see, and they've determined what the amount is proper and allowable for use on the road in order for people to see. And if you can't see, it's unsafe. That's why darker tint is illegal, essentially. And then additionally, you can't prevent anyone else from seeing inside your vehicle. And not because you can't safely drive the car, but because we need to be able to identify the occupants, see what you're doing from a police perspective, see if you're wearing a seatbelt, driving with alcohol, using a cell phone. If you look at the video on our account right now, see a child standing on the lap of the driver playing with a steering wheel as they're driving down the road. They had tinted windows. You can barely make it out. So why is dark tint illegal? For all those reasons. Can you eat or drink water? Can you eat or drink water? Okay, no, you don't eat water, you eat or drink. Got it. Okay, so yes, legally you can. If it were to negatively impact your ability to safely operate your vehicle, that would be, careless driving. When to put snow tires on? Well, if you choose to put snow tires, and I do, I'm someone who endorses their use, because tires are not meant for all season. We call them all season, but they're not all season. When the temperature gets to about 7 degrees on average, is when the change should happen, in either direction. 7 degrees. No, I'm misspeaking. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right details. I think it's 7 degrees. When it hovers around 7, when to change. We're actually planning a winter driving safety event to snow tires. I want to find out. CAA is a big advocate on this. Let's see here. Tires. Yeah. As soon as the what is this? Is it CAA saying it? Yeah. Basically, someone said if you can see your breath, it's time to change those tires. But they say 7 degrees Celsius. If it's staying there, that's time to change. If you got them, use them. They make a big difference. Now, equally, there are people who've been driving with winter tires for the last 2 summers. During COVID, they just never changed them. Those tires are garbage. Snow tires used in the summer do not last. They burn out really, really quickly. Also, they take longer to stop. They're not good for the wet. They're only good for snow. They have different purposes. They're a different type of rubber. They're specifically made for a specific condition. One tire for all doesn't work. Not ideally anyway. The all seasons, or what they call all seasons, better than having summers in the winter, but not perfect. You can do better. Is it illegal not to have a light to illuminate a plate? Yes, in Ontario, you must illuminate your rear plate with at least 3 candela worth of light. That is an actual thing. It has to be white light. It's the only color you're permitted to illuminate your plate with. I used to pull over a lot of vehicles that were. Where's my mouse? I'm trying to find. There we are. I used to pull over a lot of vehicles that were not adhering to plate. We have to be able to see the plate. It must be illuminated. White light only. Okay. Is it illegal to drive off-road on public lands? I'm not an off-road person, but I assume that it would be illegal if it's not permitted. And Sergeant Campbell, who is not sitting next to me, would be the right person to ask that question. I think you have to have approved paths or permission of the owner. So I'm going to say not legal, but I am not the guru of off-road. Can you explain how to use a traffic circle? I think you mean a roundabout. And there's a lot of people who need this explanation. But essentially, you go into it and you don't signal. You go in and you have to yield to whatever traffic is already in the traffic circle or the roundabout. So if you see someone coming, you got to slow. You got to time your entry so that you're not that you're yielding to them, so you're not interfering with their flow. When it comes time to leaving that circle, that roundabout, signal your intention to exit. That allows the person who's about to enter it know that they can enter it. And we find that most people don't indicate at all on a roundabout because they just don't know. And that's kind of scares me about traffic circles. Hope that answers your question. If you need more, let me know. Do you need a license for a bicycle that has and there's nothing else after? And I'm going to assume an electric motor or a gasoline motor, and I'll give you the answers for both right now. If you have an e-bike, that is an electric motor. Now, e-bike, to qualify as one under the HTA, you must have one that has no more than 500 watts of power, weighs no more than 120 kilos, and is not capable of generating speed or traveling at speed more than 32 kilometers an hour on a flat surface. There's additional requirements for braking and other things, but that's the nuts and bolts. That's the basic. If it goes 33 kilometers an hour, you need a driver's license. You also need license, ownership, and insurance for the vehicle. Okay, I said license twice, but you know what I mean. You got to have a motorcycle license because that's a motorcycle. You need to have an insurance policy, which you probably can't get. You need a license plate, which you probably can't register for, which means if it goes over 32 kilometers an hour, it's a motor vehicle that is not permitted on the road, period. Private property only. If you are talking about a motor, you put a gasoline engine, regardless of what the top speed is, regardless of what the displacement is, that is a motorcycle. It's a motor vehicle, requires license, ownership, and insurance. And again, this is for converted vehicles. They are not approved by Transport Canada. They cannot be used on the highway. They're effectively mopeds, but they have no VIN numbers, so you can't register them. A moped is a motor vehicle, and once upon a time, you used to be able to ride them with a G-Class license. That changed in 2007, I believe, and now you need a motorcycle license, or at very least a low-power motorcycle license. Okay. What is this? Can I have a popcorn? What is this? A popcorn? I don't know what that is. It's probably an exhaust thing. Can I have a popcorn tube or a two-step? I don't know what that actually is referring to. Obviously, I'm going to assume you can't because I'm going to assume that you're asking about something that doesn't fit the standard definition of exhaust system that would be approved. But I don't know enough to give you a definitive answer. I'm just going to assume it's probably something that's not permitted. I'll have to googly-goo it later and get some research on a popcorn tube. It just sounds like it would make popping sounds. Soundses? Yeah. Apparently I said that. Okay. What do we got here? Can a red light camera get us a speeding ticket? No. Red light cameras are red light cameras. Speeding tickets are speeding tickets. Maybe different jurisdictions use different technology that would permit it, or the ability to do both. Now, the truth is, it does actually catch you. It does determine your speed, but not through radar, and it's for anticipating when you're crossing the white line. So there is something to be said for that. Oh, so Jay says they meant popcorn tune, not tube, and it is illegal, and the same with two-step. So I still don't know what they are, but we're going to say popcorn and tube. That's like maybe it's a burble. Yeah, if you're allowing your vehicle to accumulate unspent gas in your exhaust system by tuning it that way, you're doing a number of things. Not only are you creating a really obnoxious, annoying sound, which I don't understand why anyone wants their car to sound like it's constantly drowning. But additionally, it's what is it? Environmental Protection Act. You're spilling gasoline out. You're not controlling your gasoline. That's a problem. Let's see here. Can a 4-year-old kid sit in my car without a booster? No. First of all, a 4-year-old kid should be rear-facing, a rear-facing or a convertible seat, not a baby bucket, not an infant bucket, but a rear-facing. Well, actually, at 4 years old, you can go to a forward-facing, but a booster is not sufficient at that age. Well, we lost TikTok again. Let's see if it comes back. Did it come back? Here, it's back. We're having problems with TikTok today on LTE. So going back to, can a 4-year-old sit in my car without a booster seat? The answer is no. They need to be, not only, I've skipped over a whole, you must be in a booster or car seat, a booster seat until 8 years old, 80 pounds, or 4'9". That's the requirement to be in a car without a seat. But a 4-year-old is a toddler, needs a forward-facing seat, not a booster, a forward-facing seat. Depends on their age and size and so on, all those things. But a 4-year-old chances are just came out of rear-facing into forward-facing. Not even a booster would be sufficient. I stopped someone recently because I saw a child without a booster that was very clearly not sitting appropriately. Had an opportunity at a stoplight to have a discussion with that driver. And they had the booster in the back seat, which still wasn't approved for that, but was better than what they had, which was nothing. I don't understand why you'd put a booster or a car seat in the trunk, but not under the child's butt. Yeah, we have a lot of issues with people making very poor decisions when it comes to safety. Bad. We talked about this. We're going to remove that question since it's duplication. And it's 11 minutes after. We're going a little long, and you know what? I like it. We're having the extra large edition today. Going long on the show is good. What do we have here? Jace confirms popcorn and burble tune are the same thing. Two-step means you're giving your car a second rev limiter for launch control, which often people use to shoot flames and gunshots from exhaust. Yeah, I'm bad. Not good. Why do people do this? How bored are you that you need to tune your car to be obnoxious? I don't get it. Okay. How much? Someone wants to know how much you can drink and drive legally. The legal limits are 0.05 to be before you get a 3-day suspension for your first warn, and 0.08 before you're criminally charged. But impairment can happen at any point, even under that 0.05. So don't drink and drive. Finding out how much you can get away with is really not a good goal. Not a good way to play. What we got here? Why is it required to wear a helmet and a slingshot? Because it's a motorcycle. I know it doesn't look like a motorcycle, but it's a motorcycle. At least in Ontario it is. In other jurisdictions it may be a car, but here it's a motorcycle, so you got to wear a helmet. Now it's got a special exemption, so you don't need a motorcycle license to operate it. That's under a pilot, I believe. But that being said, it's still a motorcycle. Okay. Do I need side mirrors on my Jeep with no doors? Legally, as long as you have a rear-facing or one mirror to the rear, so the one that's hanging on your windshield, as long as that view to the rear is clear, then you don't need side mirrors. However, when I had a Jeep, I relocated my mirrors to the windshield hinges, and that's how I made sure I had the best visibility, even though I had no doors. Okay. Let's see here. Interesting. Apparently there was a study that loud exhausts cause you to release dopamine and serotonin. So people who have loud, obnoxious exhaust systems are simply just enjoying their dopamine and serotonin. Not a good excuse, but I at least now I have more of an understanding of it. Thanks, Jace. Okay. What is this? Why don't... I don't know what that is. Can I drive with my G2 on the highway? We talked about that earlier. We'll clear that one out. Yes, you can. Okay. We're pushing it for another minute. What's the easiest way to get out of a red light ticket? Well, the easiest way is to never have gotten one in the first place. There's no defense that I can come up with that gets you out of one. I'm the one who writes the tickets. I'm not the one who defends them, so not the right person to ask, because I always side with don't run the light. Be a responsible driver. That's how we keep people safe. Can I put my insured car plates on a vehicle? I don't have the rest of that question, so I can't answer it. But if it's attached to a vehicle, and plates aren't insured, cars are insured, vehicles are insured. Are covered plates legal in Ontario? No. You can't cover them with plastic. You can't put frames on them. You can't obscure or obstruct their ability. You can't put dirt on them. That cannot be dirty. Snow is against the law. Yeah, your plates must be legible at all times. Can a G1, 16 years old, drive with a younger teen sibling? Yes. However, they must be supervised by a driver in the front passenger seat who has 4 years experience and is considered a qualified driver. 4 years experience with from the point that they got their G2, they have to have the 4 dots in the bottom right-hand corner of their driver's license, and then they can supervise. But they can be the supervising driver is the only person who can be in the front seat. So if you had a pickup truck that was only a 2-door and you wanted to put your sibling in the middle, that's not lawful. Only person who could be in the front seat is the supervising driver, and a sibling could be in the back seat. I'm glad you asked that question. I don't think we've had that question recently. I'm sure we've had it before, though. Can we carry an e-copy of our driver's license? No. Photos are not. First of all, there's no electronic government-issued identification right now in Ontario for driver's license. So the answer is no, you need your actual card. And if you mean take a photo of it, that's not an electronic copy that's acceptable, because no electronic copies are acceptable, but photos don't count. It might get you a benefit of better than nothing, but you could still find yourself being charged $110 for that offense. And there's no, well, I'll bring it to the station to show you because you've already committed the offense at that point. It's just done. Let's see here. I don't know. Steve has a question, but I don't know what we're talking about. What are the fines for going through a crosswalk? Fail to yield pedestrian? Depends. Depends on what. Going through a crosswalk, there's so many potentials. Like, do you mean going through while a pedestrian, like failing to yield to someone in the crosswalk? That's one thing. Failing to what is it? Is it stop for? Because you have to wait until if there's a crossing guard present, you have to wait until the pedestrians are completely off the road. So there's charges for that. So it depends. But I don't know what the offense dollar amount is. Let's look it up. Looking it up. I have this great app that I can fuzzy search pretty much everything, and I like it. I like it a lot. If I haven't already mentioned that we won't be going live tomorrow, at least I don't think we will be. If anything changes, I will announce it beforehand. But assume that we will not be here today, but we will be back here on Friday. Okay. Looking at crosswalk. So far, I don't see anything. No, I don't find. I'm not finding it. There's a charge that's $110, but I'm not seeing here. No. I'm gonna have to do some reading to give you the appropriate thing, but it's against the law. I just don't know what charge we'd lay. Are underglow lights illegal? Are underglow lights legal in Ontario? They're not specifically legal or illegal. Their use could constitute an offense under other sections, like if the bulb is visible and it's projecting light forwards, it might be an improper headlight or tail light or so on. So if you're truly installing them properly and it's only reflecting off the ground, I see no issue with them. No blinking red, that would be a problem. What is this? Is bubbling window tint a reason to be pulled over? Window tint alone is a reason to be pulled over. Bubbling window tint, if it's obscuring the driver's ability to see, sure, it's a reason to be pulled over. Not if it's not affecting the passenger or the driver or passenger front driver or passenger window, because that's the one that needs to be visible or that you have to be able to clearly see through. If it's the back windows, that's really not a reason, in my opinion. But I don't know what the officer who may or may not have pulled you over for that was justifying why they were pulling you over. Let's see here. What are the steps to become a police officer? Well, in the province of Ontario, there's something called an OACP certificate, and that's something that you must, complete. You have to get it. It's a physical and academic testing procedure, and then you apply. Once you have your certificate, you can apply to a police service, and once you get to an interview stage, if you're past that, you'll be getting a physical because you need medical clearance. There's vision testing and so on. That we'll couple that all together. But at the end of the day, the best thing to do to get the best information about becoming a member of the Toronto Police Service or any police service is call the police service that you want to join. For Toronto, it's tps.ca/careers. Speak to a recruiter, get all the information. They want to hire you. We want to hire people who want to be police officers. Shocking. So call us, get all the best information from a recruiter. They actually want to come on the show soon and talk about stuff and things. Let's see here. Suspension due to stunt is removed after withdrawn ticket? No. A suspension due to a stunt driving charge is not removed after your ticket is withdrawn. If you were at the roadside, lost your license, all of that remains. Conviction in court is not the same thing as what happens at the side of the road. One of the biggest issues and reasons the government added the longer suspension and impounds are because people were playing technicalities to get off of charges. So if they withdraw it, you still, everything that's happened up until then is still there. Just because something was withdrawn doesn't mean you're innocent. It means that you were not convicted. There's a big difference. Many people confuse conviction and innocence, or lack of conviction and innocence. You can be guilty and still not convicted. Let's see here. What is this? At age, can a child sit in the front seat? So front seat, we say stay in the back seat until 14 years old. If we're talking about being out of a booster, it's 8 years old, 80 pounds, or 4'9" in height. Those are the requirements for being out of a booster seat. Don't be in a rush to get your kids out of a booster seat. The booster seat is going to, and respective car restraints, safety restraints, are there for your benefit. SIPSAC.org is the information center that I would suggest you check out. They have all sorts of great info. They also have people who can give you the latest and greatest advice when it comes to child safety in motor vehicles. Hey, I got a phone call. That means I gotta go because it means my appointment is here. To everyone, have a wonderful day, and we will be back on Friday. Take care. Stay safe. Stay safe, everybody.
5,
we'll see you tomorrow
4,
Friday.
3, 2, 1, 0.